Social programs in Canada are quietly burying the working class Canadians. And this is why, in today's day, it's so important to understand money and to get yourself in a solid financial position where you're minimizing the amount you're paying to the government. So, CPP is a big one. It's basically paying into a pension plan, a government pension plan for people. I think it's above the age of 55. Could be wrong with that. It's 55 or 60. And so because we have an aging population in Canada, all the boomers are aging. They're claiming their CPP. My grandparents are. And so basically the younger generations in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s even, are working to support this older generation through CPP. Employment insurance is another big one where working class Canadians are supporting those who either don't want to work or can't work. Now, I don't want to be super cynical here because I do recognize that there are always going to be cases where people do need this money through no fault of their own. So I'm not blaming people who can't work. Maybe they're physically unable to work. They have some sort of mental disability. I get that, right? And that's totally fair. But I think that so much money that we're generating, so much GDP we're producing for our economy is just being pushed into these groups, these minority groups that aren't contributing to society and that maybe have never really contributed to society. And so I think we need to rethink our social programs in Canada and ultimately get to a place where the people who really need these programs are getting them, but that we're not just doling out money from the working class for basically anyone who meets a certain very loose threshold or loose criteria. In my opinion, CPP shouldn't exist, and I'm going to explain why. So I believe that CPP is basically a scam, okay? We are paying into this government pension plan, and it's not even much money. Like, I don't know how much it is, but I know that it's not a lot, right? And I know some of you will argue, well, a lot of old people just need the extra money, right? They need to pay their groceries and whatever, their living expenses because they're retired, they're not working. But I would argue that for the vast majority of older Canadians in their 60s, 70s, 80s plus, these individuals, again, this is my opinion, but I think they should be able to support themselves without government aid, without CPP, whether that be through their own investment portfolio because they were smart and they actually invested over their 30 to 40 plus years in the workforce, or maybe that's, through, I lost my train of thought. But yes, I believe that older people should not require CPP. And if they do, there should be a very specific reason for it that's out of their control. Like I said before, maybe they couldn't work for many years of their life and they were just, sick or mentally handicapped. Those people should get some form of payment from the government, right? I'm not saying that we should choke them out. But I think a lot of able-bodied Canadians who have, worked gainfully, were gainfully employed throughout their entire lives are being subsidized way too much by our government. And the younger, hardworking individuals are paying the price. And there might be the argument that, well, these people used to pay into CPP while they were working, so they should be getting it, right? Well, back then, they were paying a lot less into CPP, first of all. And second of all, the aging population is being supported by younger workers, like me. I'm 25, okay? They're being supported by younger workers, not by the money that they've put into these, into this CPP fund or whatever throughout their working careers. So it's the working person that's ultimately footing the bill for this one. And so, while I do agree that, since they did pay into it, they should be eligible for something, I think it's still very unfortunate that younger working class people are having to support an aging population that is way larger than themselves. And I believe that every old person, not every old person, but the vast majority should have invested and should be financially well off enough to the point where they're either getting a company pension or their portfolio, their investments are spinning off enough cash flow that they can comfortably live in retirement. Now, we all know that this doesn't happen. A lot of old people, people in general, just don't save and they don't invest. They don't know how because no one ever taught them. Why? Well, because our school system is kind of broken and the government doesn't really want people to know how to invest and save, because if they did, people wouldn't be working till they're 65. They honestly wouldn't need to, because they would have invested enough that they could have retired early, probably in their 50s or even 40s. So I think this whole fact that we have to give the older generations a big crutch via CPP and other, government assistance programs, I think it just speaks volumes to the fact that most Canadians are terrible at saving money and investing over their lifetimes. And it just really, it really saddens me and it really frustrates me that this lack of education is just so prevalent in our society. And that's one of the reasons that I'm bringing this channel forward, because I want it to be more popular, to be investing and to be frugal and to start businesses and make more money, right? Obviously, we need people to work for our economy to function. And that's kind of the paradox of this whole thing, right? In order for my portfolio to grow, my stock portfolio, I need people to be working at the companies that I'm investing in so that they're, increasing in value. I am a shareholder and people are increasing my value through working. And like I said, a lot of people work until they're 60, until they're 65, because that's what the government has deemed to be normal retirement age. It's just commonplace in our society. But I ultimately think social programs are way too lax in Canada. We're just giving away way too much money, not only to our internal groups like those collecting employment insurance or CPP, but also to other countries that, may need money. Yes, but what have they done for us? And I know that might sound selfish, that might sound negative. I understand that there might be some backlash for these things I'm saying now, but I believe that, it's important to be, sustaining your own population first and focusing on the majority groups, which again is the working class young Canadians. We're probably, one of the cohorts that really needs the most support, actually. It's not it shouldn't be, in my opinion, the elder population, aside from healthcare. I get healthcare is important for older people, obviously, right? They're aging and they need more support. But just giving billions of dollars away to some third world country I've never heard of, to me, it doesn't really make sense. So I'm kind of going all over the map with this video. But all is to say that, I think the government needs to step up, right? And recognize that it's the young working class Canadians who are paying this price, right? We're paying the most taxes, the most CPP, the most EI, and most of us can barely afford to buy homes or can't afford to buy homes. And to me, that's a problem. When the young generations can't really afford to live properly and build families, your nation is undoubtedly going to start having problems. The birth rate's going to drop, which we have seen in Canada and in many G7 nations. You also have issues with, depression, people, aren't having healthy relationships as as often as they used to back in the past. Okay, I don't know about that last point, because I just think it's the baseline life for like young working class Canadians has been lowered so much. Like we used to, it used to be not that difficult to get a car, to get a house, and to start a family. Nowadays, you basically have to be either a super saver or a top earner, or wait until you're 40 in order to be able to afford these things that used to be taken for granted. So again, kind of going off on a tangent, but all this to say that, look, if the older generations today require social programs for money, like CPP, and they had it fairly easy in terms of purchasing a home, which is the biggest expense most people will ever have in their entire lifetime, then how are younger people today going to even get by? Most people aren't even going to be able to retire because these milestones have been shifted out so far. So instead of, buying a house at 25 and, retiring at 60, like a lot of boomers did now, or even younger, a lot of them bought houses or built houses in their late teens, early 20s. But nowadays we have our milestones shifting. So the average, I believe, age to buy a home in Ontario now is 40. So when you're shifting that out, most Canadians who do buy homes are taking on larger amounts of debt than ever before, record high levels of debt. We've got trillions of dollars in consumer debt in our country. So if older people now, the boomers who arguably had it very good financially for the most part, if they're struggling with money, then I think today's generation is going to struggle a lot more than that. And we're in for some turbulent times going forward into the future. Unless, of course, AI comes into play and completely just revolutionizes work and people don't even have to produce anymore because AI does everything. That could be something that happens as well. And that obviously remains to be seen. I'm not going to, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball, obviously. But I'm just speaking my mind here. And I just think there's a lot of social pressure these days to achieve what our parents did, what our grandparents did. And quite honestly, the game has shifted so far that it's virtually impossible. Unless, again, like I said before, you're far above average in terms of your saving, your investing, and your income. So this is kind of a pessimistic video, I guess, but I just wanted to put some thoughts out there today. And if you enjoyed and you liked listening to me rant, I would appreciate if you hit that thumbs up. Also, let me know your comments, your thoughts on Canada. Do you think that younger people and not just younger people, but the working generation, working classes, do we have it harder than ever before? Is there light at the end of the tunnel? What is the solution to all this? Should we be cutting social programs to focus more of our money where it actually matters and only giving these handouts to people who truly need it? Let me know. I'm interested to hear what you have to say, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.